U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo spoke at an Atlantic Council front page event on September 15, pointing out that in recent months, China's predatory economic activity, coupled with its sneaky handling of the coronavirus pandemic, has awakened the world to the threat Beijing poses on the international community. The Atlantic Council invited Pompeo to one of its virtual meetings on Tuesday to discuss his recent trip to Europe and how European nations are awakening to the China challenge. Pompeo said that the United States needs to recognize that its China policies chosen in the 1970s must be changed to protect the security of American people. The most important group that we need to make the case for is to convince the American people of this threat and this challenge, he said, adding that the Chinese Communist regime has stolen tens of millions of jobs from the American people. Secondly, he stated that the United States needs to convince and partner with its international allies.
In the past 70 or 80 years, the international community has dealt with the communist camp in two different ways. One is to bring communist regimes down economically, and the other is to help communist regimes get rich. Which of these two paths leads to success? Obviously, it was the downfall of the former Soviet Union. When the West bankrupted the Soviet Union economically, its citizens naturally rose up against the regime. The other path has undoubtedly turned out to be a failure. The way to deal with an evil communist regime is to completely bankrupt it. Then it is possible to disintegrate it. If you help this regime make more and more money, the final result is that it poses more and more of a threat to the international community.
Pompeo said that in the past 1.5 years, he has been all around the world talking to America's allies about what the Chinese Communist Party is doing to their people and to their country and to the threats that it poses to their sovereignty.
And I must say, it's been rewarding over the last 6 or 8 months to watch the shift. The world has awakened. My view is that the tide has turned. I think whether it's their recognition of the cover-up that took place with respect to the Chinese virus, whether it's the predatory activity that's now falling flat all across Africa. I think these are powerful shifts in the world's view of the threat from the Chinese Communist Party. And I think
in addition, Pompeo said American business leaders now understand much more clearly the political risks associated with operating inside a country dominated and controlled by a single party, the Chinese Communist Party.
During the CCP virus pandemic, the entire international community experienced firsthand the danger caused by the CCP's lies and deceptions. Moreover, upon seeing the CCP's suppression of human rights in Hong Kong and Xinjiang, the international community could envision that they themselves would be infiltrated and even enslaved by the CCP in the future. So they have felt an increasing urgency to resist the CCP's bullying and infiltration tactics.
Pompeo also pointed out that the CCP has used this economic might and its market power of 1.4 billion people as the central tool to build out its hegemonic capacity. With this tool, the CCP thinks that American businesses cooperating with China will turn a blind eye to human rights violations in China. We may oppose things here, we may support groups here in the United States, but we're not going to do a thing to protect human rights inside China, Pompeo explained. He emphasized that Chinese leader Xi Jinping's slogan, National Rejuvenation, is actually Marxist-Leninist underpinnings of the Chinese Communist regime and the Chinese desire for hegemony.
The United States has made a major strategic change. That is to say, it regards the CCP as the successor to the Stalin totalitarian system of the former Soviet Union and a new version of the Soviet Union that poses a fatal threat to the free democratic camp in the world. The harm of the CCP has even surpassed the Soviet Union back then. This strategic change is based on a bitter lesson learned by the United States from its misjudgment of the CCP. After the United States learned this lesson from first-hand experience, it has had a major impact on other countries all over the world.
Tang Jingyuan mentioned that the international society is getting more and more clear on the threat and challenge posed by China. It is all about the CCP's value system, which completely contradicts that of the free world.
We have seen that reciprocal strategy is becoming a widely accepted measure to counter the CCP. For example, at the recent EU-China summit, the European Union has also begun to take a tough stance with China, demanding the CCP stop its predatory economic activities, improve human rights, and fulfill its commitments in the international community, etc. All these indicate that the United States is leading the international community again and has begun a new Cold War. They are also a sign that many countries have made it into their policy to counter the CCP and are determined to fight a long-term battle with the CCP.
Pompeo reiterated that America is a deeply moral nation and it has a set of founding principles upon which that morality is based. China using human rights language to cover up for the most unbelievable human rights violations is an enormous crisis in human rights in the 21st century. What's taking place in Western China is unrivaled in this century. I've called it the stain of the century. He said he hopes that moral foundations will guide U.S. officials to do well in American foreign policy and preserve human dignity.
On the cover report of Caixin Weekly published on September 14th, it revealed that Zhongmu Lanzhou Biological Pharmaceutical Factory had a human-induced leakage of brucella between July 24th to August 20th last year. At least 3,000 people around the factory had contracted the disease brucellosis. Officials in Gansu Lanzhou did not report the accident until December 26th last year. They claimed that while producing brucellosis vaccines for animal use, the factory used expired disinfectants and sanitizers, meaning not all bacteria were eradicated in the waste gas. This contaminated waste gas formed aerosols that contained the bacteria and leaked into the air, carried by the wind down to the Lanzhou Veterinary Research Institute where the outbreak first hit. At that time, classifying the leak that lasted for a month as an unexpected incident, the authorities only announced a total of 2,004 people from the Lanzhou Institute of Veterinary Research and Lanzhou University were antibody positive. No other relevant data has been released since. However, Caixin Weekly revealed that through field investigations by reporters, the number of infected persons exceeded the official data by more than 10 times. As of the end of February this year, Lanzhou had conducted tests on 20,000 nearby residents, among which about 5,000 people tested positive after the initial screening. Later, the Provincial Health and Disease Control Department had a second test and confirmed that more than 3,000 people tested positive. Dr. Sean Lin, a former virology researcher at the U.S. Army Research Institute, pointed out that this infection figure shows that the Lanzhou leak was a major public safety incident.
The number of people infected with brucellosis is actually tens of thousands every year nationwide. For example, in 2014, the total reported cases nationwide was about 57,000. In the United States, the total number of cases of brucellosis in the country each year is usually about 100 or so in the past 20 years. So you can see that the number of people infected with brucellosis has been actually on the rise in China in recent years, especially after 2000. There is a trend of rapid rise.
Zhongmu Lanzhou Biological Pharmaceutical Factory is known as one of the oldest veterinary vaccine manufacturers in China. It is a subsidiary of the China Animal Husbandry Industry Corporation, a listed state-owned enterprise and a designated manufacturer of major animal disease vaccines by the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs. The authorities classified the leak, which lasted for a month, as an unexpected incident. But Dr. Xiaoen pointed out that the problems exposed by the pharmaceutical factory are far more than that.
Such leaks lasted for a month, indicating that there were serious leaks in multiple places in the entire production process. The reagents purchased might have been unsuitable and expired, which may be caused by poor management. In addition, every inactivated vaccine produced must also be tested. You should soon find out if all bacteria are inactivated.
It has once again been revealed that there are serious problems in vaccine production in China. In fact, China has experienced many vaccine quality problems and even poisonous vaccine incidents over the years. It is difficult for people in China to trust vaccines made in China, let alone the international community, especially developed countries.
The disease, also known as multifever or Mediterranean fever, can cause symptoms including headaches, muscle pain, fever, and fatigue. While these may subside, some symptoms can become chronic or never go away. However, the Caixin Weekly reported that the vast majority of these patients have not been diagnosed yet and only received a double-positive test sheet. Some people could not even get their own reports, which were taken away by the Provincial Department of Disease Control. They don't even know if they are sick, whether they should take the treatments, and what they should do if brucellosis remains hidden in the body.
A new report has found that each year, Beijing pours billions of dollars to fund its influence operations worldwide, which seeks to silence dissidents, suppress minority groups, and acquire foreign technology. Chinese diplomats have insisted that United Front groups, state-affiliated organizations in charge of spreading Beijing's agenda at home and abroad, are benign bureaucratic missions facilitating foreign exchange based on openness, transparency, and equality. These groups are overseen by either the United Front Work Department or Chinese government agencies that are ultimately controlled by the department. But the scale of such operations funding appears to contradict Chinese authorities' claims. According to a report published by the think tank Jamestown Foundation on September 16, an analysis of 160 recent state budget reports revealed that the central government spends at least $1.4 billion annually on United Front-related work, while yearly spending from 31 Chinese provinces and regions surpasses $1.3 billion. The sum of the two surpasses the budget for China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which had a budgeted spending of around $2.07 billion in 2019. The reports do not include the amount for the Central United Front Work Department, whose data is not available but likely to add another $400 million to the total, if not more, the think tank reported estimated. Analyst Ryan Futasuk wrote in the report for Jamestown Foundation, "There is a universal truth known to government bureaucrats in every country. Budgets speak louder than words." According to the budget reports, the influence efforts focus heavily on suppressing ethnic and religious groups. The regime spends more than $1.2 billion each year. Next on Beijing's target list are foreigners and overseas Chinese communities, which the regime dedicates $585 million to. One of China's United Front agencies, the Foreign and Overseas Chinese Affairs Offices, is responsible for spreading overseas propaganda, preaching reunification ideas to residents of Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan, attracting foreign talents, and censoring information it deems as related to foreign interference. The offices have central and local government branches. The Chinese regime considers Taiwan a self-ruled island as part of its territory. It also maintains a tight grip on Hong Kong and Macau, two former European colonies that reverted to Chinese rule in 1997 and 1999, respectively, despite promising in handover agreements to respect their autonomy. Citing a 2019 budget document from southeastern Jiangxi province, the report noted that some of the FACAO's budget documents also indicate cooperation with the regime's national security and intelligence departments to supervise and inspect the implementation of foreign affairs discipline and foreign-related confidentiality systems. On September 16, Futasuk wrote in a tweet about his findings, "In light of the facts, I'd ask this question. If there's really nothing nefarious going on with the United Front, why do some provinces feel compelled to classify information about their United Front works as secret? And why does an admin org occupy so much of the Chinese government's resources?" He noticed that regional budgets for United Front work were nearly as much as their propaganda budgets, which shows how highly the party values the United Front as a tool for both domestic and foreign influence, he wrote. Futasuk's research is one of a series that the foundation released on September 16th, detailing Chinese United Front work in Western countries. In the United States, a major Chinese front group is the China-U.S. Exchange Foundation. According to one report, this is one of the most prominent Chinese entities funding lobbying efforts over the past decade. The organization has repeatedly denied its ties with the regime and claims to be independent, despite its chairman being the current vice chairman of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, a political advisory body to the Chinese Communist Party. The organization and the Chinese embassy paid $313,200 and $144,000 respectively in the first half of 2020 as a U.S.-based public relations firm, BLJ Worldwide, one of 7 such firms it contracted to compensate for services related to promoting China's public image in the media and influencing China-U.S. policy. In the Czech Republic, United Front groups organized propaganda efforts involving first hoarding and shipping medical equipment to China, then later sending supplies to countries to burnish its image as a world savior. According to Czech-based United Front work researcher Filip Juroš, the effort is known as Corona Prop in Europe and has demonstrated the effectiveness of United Front tactics. In Sweden, where tensions with China have escalated since Beijing's jailing of Swedish citizen and bookseller Gui Minhai, United Front efforts have struggled to pick up steam. The Belt and Road Institute in Sweden, which promotes the Nordic country joining the regime's scheme to build infrastructure projects around the world, saw one of its leaders expelled from the local Christian Democrats Party after media reports revealed her connections with United Front Work Department officials.
There have been numerous unusual natural phenomena taking place in China this year, such as summer snows, coronavirus-shaped hailstones, mountains making strange sounds, and hundreds of fish leaping out of the water at the same time. Netizens in the Xinjiang region and Shanxi province recently reported that some fruit trees that produce beautiful spring blossoms are now blooming in September. According to traditional Chinese culture, snow and hail in the wrong season, as well as flowers blooming in the wrong season, are inauspicious signs that foreshadow a big disaster in the coming months.
看一下，在新疆，现在今天是9月5号，既然果树都在开花呢。 看，还连着一排子树都在开花呢。
She explained in her Weibo post that the flowers were peach and plum flowers.
今天是2020年9月13号，你看今年这个季节，苹果树现在开花呢。哎呀，今年由于疫情啊。
7 months ago, unusual sightings of dense flocks of crows were reported in central China's Hubei province, the place where the CCP virus originated, in late January and early February, when the outbreak was most serious. Chinese elderly used to say that crows are carrion eaters and have the ability to anticipate death because they can smell the odor of those who are dying. Therefore, they hover around corpses or patients before death. The same scene was spotted in Hubei and Guizhou provinces, but it was difficult to tell whether the birds in the videos were swallows, sparrows, or crows.
密密麻麻的。